Can you read to me the nameplate?
Judge Eboni K Williams.
So the only thing that matters in this particular courtroom is how I see it. I am from North Carolina by way of Louisiana with some West Coast cool and a New York edge. Do we have a problem, ma'am?
No, I don't, Your Honor.
Equal justice is all about the most important values of our country: freedom, integrity, and those are the things that I'm striving for. Ma'am, you run your household, this man gets to run his. I decided to become an attorney and pursue the law. I wanted to be a voice for the voiceless. This court cannot hold this woman accountable. People from all sectors of life, black, white, purple, gay, straight, queer, and that's what equal justice with Judge Eboni K Williams is all about.
Zara Carroll claims her tenant refuses to pay for the extra rent and utilities incurred when her boyfriend stayed beyond what the lease allows. Kelsey Frank says he had to stay the 4 extra days because his flight was canceled.
So it looks like I have Miss Carroll here as my plaintiff, Kelsey Frank, defendant, and you've got a witness with you, Miss Frank. This is Matt Williams. Why are we here today, Miss Carroll?
We are here today because my former tenant, Miss Frank, brought her boyfriend in to live as a second tenant in our house, and I am suing her.
You'll get your turn, Miss Frank. Go ahead.
For violating our lease agreement and for the bills that were higher during that time.
Okay, now this is your home that you own?
Yes.
And you are renting to Miss Frank?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and you're staying there as well?
Yes, so it is a duplex, and I live in the bottom unit, and she lives on the top unit.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So give me a sense as to why she was not allowed to have her boyfriend stay with her.
We have a specification in the lease that she can have guests for up to 4 weeks, which I'm not a monster. I put that in there just like so she can have overnight guests, you know, if she like wants to get fun or whatever. I'm fun, you know. And like
yeah, you seem like a lot of fun, Miss Carroll. Go ahead.
I am fun.
I believe you.
She brings him in for 4 weeks exactly, and he overstayed his welcome by about a week. He stayed for about 5 weeks total. Oh. And in our lease agreement, it says that if you have 2 tenants in the building, then it is a larger amount of money for rent because there is more bills and more just noise in general. This entire situation also disrupted my entire state of being. I sell jewelry out of my house, and so I'm there most of the time.
Right.
And so during that time, I got very frustrated during that time because he would be parading friends around and bringing
This is during business hours?
During business hours, yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the lease agreement. Offer that up to my bailiff so we can see what we're talking about.
Yes.
I'll take everything.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
This way.
All right, let's look and see what we are talking about here.
That first one is you should have a couple months worth of my utility bills there to show that during the time that he was there, which was about February a couple years ago.
I see an increase. That's what you're pointing out to me.
It tripled, and I was not charging her bills during that time. I was taking care of the bills within the lease agreement.
So you mean when you say bills, utilities?
Utilities, yes.
Okay, so she was paying you a lump sum and you were paying for the utilities for y'all's whole...
For the whole
house?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I also noticed that he was playing music real loud and...
During the work hours? Or during the fun time?
During work hours.
Okay.
I had to go on multiple occasions to the little coffee shop down the corner to get any of my marketing work done, and I also have a very vibrant social media presence and was not able to film anything during that time for my business because he was making noise during the whole day, and it was very frustrating to me.
Okay, let's get to this lease agreement, shall we? Yes. So this talks about you 2 parties. Miss Frank is listed here as a tenant. I see you've got $2,600 due. That's the monthly rent on the 1st of every month.
Correct.
All looks on the up and up. Let's get to this guest policy. This is much contention. Okay. Yeah. Tenants are allowed guests for a total of 4 weeks per year. Tenants may decide how to spend their allotted guest visits. Any guest that stays on the property for more than 4 weeks will be considered a tenant, and rent will increase to $3,000 a month. So it goes up from $2,600 to $3,000 to accommodate 2 people.
Correct, Your Honor. And I will note that I am only suing for 1 month's worth of that prorated rent and the utility fees and just general like health and well-being that I estimated about $50.
Oh, about 50. Okay. Your health and
Yeah.
well-being is $50 at a claim.
During that month, yes.
Okay.
I think that I am being kind in that way because it went over into the month of March, and I very well.
But that's what I
could
wanted to get
have.
clarity on before I go and get Ms. Frank's part. How many days did he outstay his welcome, as you put it?
It was about a week, I think. It was
like 7 days?
It was four days.
Okay,
so
4 days. How many days in a week, Ms. Carroll?
There are 7 days in a week.
Okay, you're telling me it was 4 days.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, we'll get to why that's important in a second. Let me hear from you, Ms. Frank. What say you as to this allegation?
Ms. Carroll is really exaggerating. We didn't have parties. He's not a rager. I had my boyfriend stay with me from Germany. He was studying abroad at the time, and I was allowed 4 weeks. So I had him stay the full 4 weeks, and I had let Ms. Carroll know in advance, and she said that was all right. She had then asked some pretty inappropriate questions about my boyfriend that I don't think were any of
Like
her
what?
business.
The court begs to know.
I have some text messages here.
Okay, go ahead and
if you'd
offer
like
that up
see
to
them.
my bailiff.
Your Honor, I would like to.
Ms. Carroll, no ma'am, we're not doing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Coming up on Equal Justice.
She kept talking about how it was a lot of noise late at night, but I was very soft with my steps. I was very conscious of it, and I would still hear the broom.
The
late
broom?
at
Ms.
night.
Carroll, that's rude.
If you'll be in the Los Angeles area and want to bring your case to court, call 1-888-552-6878. This is Equal Justice. Equal Justice is back with the case of Zara Carroll, who is suing her tenant, Kelsey Frank, because her boyfriend overstayed his visit.
Okay, Ms. Frank, I see here, this is from Ms. Carroll, or this is you texting Ms. Carroll. Hey, Zara, I wanted to let you know that my boyfriend is coming to stay with me for a while. She says, I didn't know you had a boyfriend. How long is he staying? You say he's coming from Germany, so he's planning to stay about a month. I'm going to group all my visits together for this since he's coming from so far. She says, a month? I wouldn't really call that a little while. Like I said, I won't have any more overnight guests the rest of the year. He's traveling thousands of miles, so it's just easier for him to stay longer. She says, well, please make sure he cares for the place and shares responsibility. I'm not trying to have a freeloader in my building, laugh out loud. That must be that fun part. Okay. You say, yep, he'll help out, not a freeloader at all. She says, hope y'all can keep the noise down up there. Is he loud in the bedroom? Oh. Miss Carroll. Not your business.
I'm not saying.
Then you say, okay,
We
okay.
were friends. I don't know.
Everybody ain't as fun as you, Miss Carroll.
Okay.
So then Miss Frank says, we'll keep the noise to a minimum, thanks. Then this is a different text. This is Miss Carroll texting you, Kelsey. Kelsey, please tell your man to keep the music down. It's been keeping me up all night the past week, and his video game or whatever he sits around and does all day is extremely annoying. You say, hi, Zara. I can promise you we haven't been playing music at night. Maybe it's the neighbor. I've got to go to work every morning, so we are normally in bed by 10 p.m. As far as the video game, I will tell him to be conscious of it. Okay, this looks to be around the same time. Kelsey, I've waited a few days and said nothing, but your boyfriend's constant stomping around is very disturbing. You say, hey, Zara, I don't think he's stomping. He's a full-grown man, so his steps are probably just heavier. But I'll tell him, that's a new one. But I'll tell him to be conscious of it. A grown man should know not to stomp around. Y'all are petty. No more stomping. Okay, and then you send me the same list. Let me hear from you, Mr. Matt Williams. Go ahead and approach the witness stand. You've been properly sworn in. Tell me about your visit. How long was it, and why did you end up staying for 4 additional days?
Well, as I was studying abroad in Germany, I was about 1.5 years in, and I came to visit for a full 4 weeks on break. And I was just coming in to stay the whole time. And I was constantly kind of harassed more and more as my visit
By
was...
Miss Carroll?
Yes, by Miss Carroll.
Okay. Like she was approaching you directly?
It mostly started out as just banging on the ceiling with a broom.
No, she didn't.
That was mostly how it would come across at first, and that was usually an indicator of when I would be loud, and I would usually try and kind of tone it down at a certain point at that point. But I kind of started to realize at the end that it was more of a case of thin walls, because at a certain point she kept talking about how it was a lot of noise late at night, but I was very soft with my steps. I was very conscious of it, and I would still hear the broom.
The broom?
Late at
Ms.
night.
Carroll, that's rude. We live in 2023. It's called a text message, as I've read into the court's profile today. It's called an email. It's called be a grown-up and knock on the door and ask your tenants to lower the tone or temperature. But to do this right here,
Respectfully,
no
Your Honor.
ma'am, inappropriate and rude.
Respectfully, Your Honor, I did try talking to them before we got to that point.
Before you became rude.
Yes, thank
Let me
you.
get back to you, Mr. Williams. So tell the court you understood it was a 4-week stay. Ms. Frank, you understood it was a 4-week stay that you agreed to and signed a lease agreeing to. So you understood that after 4 weeks, you would incur a second tenant rate, which was $3,000 a month.
Yes, Your Honor.
You did understand that. So how do we get over 4 weeks?
Well, it wasn't on purpose. Matt had booked his flight for that day, the last possible day. We just missed each other and we wanted to see each other. And then the airline canceled his flight due to underbooking and automatically rebooked it for 4 days later.
Okay.
And there was nothing we could do about that. Our choices, we could have, I don't know.
Stay in the hotel?
We didn't have the money for that. He was in grad school. I'm a
Okay.
receptionist. We couldn't afford to buy a whole new ticket, so we had to take what the airline gave us.
No, I understand that, but at that point, you do understand that by possessing and staying in the occupancy past the agreed upon 4 weeks, you do now know that you kickstart that $3,000 a month phrase.
I had hoped that Miss Carroll would extend some leeway, given that
Did you ask her for leeway, Ms. Frank? Did you ask her for an exception?
she was pretty agitated at that point.
That's not what I asked you, ma'am. I asked you, did you ask your landlord to make an exception for your boyfriend extending the stay past the 4 weeks to include 4 extra days due to emergency circumstances?
No, Your
That's a
Honor,
yes or no. So that's a no? You said no, Ms. Frank? Okay, no.
Coming up on Equal Justice.
Let me just say this, Ms. Carroll, before you go further. Your preoccupation with this couple and this woman and her business and how loud they are in the bedroom and what he does all day and if he's at work or school, it's concerning to the court.
This is Equal Justice. Equal Justice is back with the case of Zara Carroll, who is suing her tenant Kelsey Frank because her boyfriend overstayed his visit.
Now let's get back to you, Ms. Carroll. Had she asked you to make an exception for just 4 days, which is not a lot in comparison to the overall 4-week extension, right? Like it's 4 weeks compared to 4 days, that's relatively small. Would you agree?
I would agree, but I will say that before that point, she had some girls over, like on a couple of occasions overnight, and I had already kind of made an exception for him staying the max amount of time that he was wanting to stay, because I was like, well, I understand love, but I...
Let me just say this, Ms. Carroll, before you go further. Your preoccupation with this couple and this woman and her business and how loud they are in the bedroom and what he does all day and if he's at work or school, it's concerning to the court. If I could charge you with nosiness, I would. Because it's very, very weird.
Well, so for 2 entire years before this entire incident happened, I was very protective of Miss Frank, and I was very, we were two, single, I thought, ladies out here in the world, in the big world.
Miss Carroll, are you a hater?
Am I what?
Are you a hater?
I don't understand.
You don't comprehend?
No.
Are you a hater? Are you jealous of the fact that your former Thelma and Louise single partners in crime buddy messed around and got a man? Are you jealous about that?
I don't think that I'm jealous of it. I think that I am upset by the amount of strange men that were wandering around my property during that time.
Okay, so now you're calling her a hoe. Okay. I've heard enough from you for this point, Miss Carroll.
Coming up on Equal Justice.
Miss Carroll, you can stop. Now you're judging this woman for cohabitating. Okay, and the only judgment that's going to be passed is going to be by Your Honor.
This is Equal Justice. Equal Justice is back with the case of Zara Carroll, who is suing her tenant Kelsey Frank because her boyfriend overstayed his visit.
So now, because of your occupancy beyond the scope of the lease agreement, you are conceding to the new term that he's now a tenant at least for 4 days, Ms. Frank. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Any final words of defense before I make my ruling?
Yes, she's suing for $600.
Yes.
Which is the $400 that would have been in the increase in rent plus utilities. My rent includes utilities. It has always included utilities. She claims that that difference was us. I don't see how you can prove that that was the case.
We're not doing that. Let me refer to this agreement. The agreement is controlling. It says the rent is agreed to be paid $2,600 to the landlord on a monthly basis. It will be due on the first of every month. It will be paid in the following manner: cash or check. I'm actually looking to see, and I'm not seeing in this lease agreement, which I'm sure you provided to your tenant, Ms. Carroll, a distinction around how the utilities will be accommodated.
I will agree that I did not put that in the lease, and I will say that I, as a landlord, am happy to pay an extra $25 every now and again when, like, you know, the weather changes and things like that. But it tripled the amount that we were charged for utilities for that month. And I am not made of money. I am an entrepreneur. I own my own business, but I work hard for every dollar that I earn. And I don't think that I should be responsible for the utilities of someone who was supposedly just a guest, but they were basically just living there together and would have like parties over.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
Go ahead, Ms. Carroll, you can stop. Now you're judging this woman for cohabitating. Okay. And the only judgment that's going to be passed is going to be by Your Honor.
Judge Eboni's verdict when equal justice returns. This is Equal Justice.
Okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to find that you were in willful violation of the original terms of your lease agreement, Ms. Frank, once your boyfriend, who started as a guest, became a tenant per the agreement for the 4 extra days that he stayed there. Ms. Carroll, you have a problem with your lease agreement, ma'am, because your lease agreement only outlines a term for rent. Nothing in this agreement specifies what is to be done in the case of utilities that go beyond scope or measure. And I didn't see nothing in this lease agreement about these so-called well-being benefits, your wellness and likeness, or whatever the heck else you were trying to get this court to consider.
Okay.
That was only worth $50. So therefore, the court will find in favor of you, Ms. Carroll. I rule in your favor to the tune of $400, not the $600 you requested. You cannot recoup utilities on the back end that you never provided an outline for on the front end. You are to pay the $400, Ms. Frank, and not a penny more. That's my ruling.
Judge Eboni has ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant is ordered to pay $400.
Any final thoughts?
I will just say that I do think that justice has been served.
I'm a little disappointed by the ruling, but I'm relieved to not have to deal with Ms. Carroll ever again.
Okay. You've had your day in court. Please follow me.
This has been a production of Allen Media Group.